Let's get more on today's events. Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse is on the Senate Judiciary Committee, was at the hearing today. Senator, thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Thanks.
I want to talk first about the hearing and your opening statement, in which you kind of laid out the different roles of the three branches of government. Why is that such a concern when you have this hearing and this nominee standing before you?
Because the Congress seems to have forgotten the three branches. I mean, really, Schoolhouse Rock isn't hard. We need a Congress that passes laws and suffers the consequences. The people get to hire and fire the Congress. We need an executive branch that tries to execute the laws that have been passed. And we need judges who judge and not try to be super legislators. And most people in the Congress seem to have forgotten.
And is that why it's over hyperventilating that we're seeing?
I think so. I mean, I think the lunacy you see when Judge Kavanaugh is, we hear that he hates women, he hates children, he wants dirty water, he wants dirty air, all this nonsense. We've heard it for 31 years straight, ever since the left decided to start politicizing these hearings, and frankly, many on the right have tried to respond in kind with making a politicized court. Since Robert Bork was taken down for a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't real, they think that this is how you're supposed to act every time there's a vacancy. Well, it tells you if you want this much protest around confirmation hearings, if you want this much protest outside the Supreme Court, it means you're trying to have a political body in the court, and it's mostly because the Congress doesn't do its job.
At the beginning of this hearing, Democrats raised a lot of points, a lot about process. Take a listen.
The committee received just last night, less than 15 hours ago, 42,000 pages of documents that we have not had an opportunity to review.
We have been denied real access to the documents we need to advise.
Mr. Chairman, what is the rush? What are we trying to hide by not having the documents out front?
So why are they wrong? 42,000 documents last night, 100,000 plus being held by executive privilege.
So let's start with a fact. There have been more documents produced related to Brett Kavanaugh's nomination than the last three nominations for Supreme Court justices combined. Why is that? It's because Brett Kavanaugh has done a whole bunch of stuff in Washington, but this claim that kept evolving during the course of the hearing, 90% of the documents hadn't been produced. By the end of the day, it was 96% of the documents hadn't been produced. None of those things are true. What happened is we don't have every document related to George W. Bush's presidency. And since Brett Kavanaugh spent 3 years as staff secretary, there was a whole bunch of paper that passed across his desk because it was George W. Bush's papers, not because it was Brett Kavanaugh's paper. And so the Democrats are trying to find a way to ask for stuff that they know can't be produced because it can be national security secrets, things related to President Bush's administration. And because it went over Kavanaugh's desk, they're saying somebody's hiding something. It's not true. An unprecedented amount of paper has been handed over.
All those Democrats have already declared that they're going to vote no. By today's hearing, do you think that they have a sense that there's just not the votes?
I think what you see happening at a hearing like today is not anything that's about doing our job. The left screaming about that stuff is not about them trying to do their job. It's not about them thinking they're going to derail Brett Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh is an eminently qualified guy, 12 years on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, 307 opinions cited by more than 200 of his colleagues on 100 different court cases. What they're trying to do is compete running for president on the left, and they want to scream the loudest and seem to be fighting the longest to try to make the hearing seem political when Brett Kavanaugh is just really not that interesting a guy in the sense of scandal. He's a really good judge, and people across the political spectrum who've stood before his bench know that.
But don't you think Republican senators would be doing something similar if it was a Democratic president and a Democratic nominee?
I do think that the left started this fight, but I think both of these parties are really, really lame in teaching basic civics to our kids right now. People on both sides of the aisle regularly talk about the Supreme Court like they're Republican justices and Democratic justices. Kavanaugh today said something great. He said, I want to be a part of a team of 9. There's no aisle in the Supreme Court, and there are no private caucus rooms because judges put on a black robe to cloak their personal preferences and their policy preferences from the past. They don't wear red or blue jerseys. They wear a black robe to say, I need to take my policy views and put them in a box and mark it irrelevant because today my job is to be a judge, and I have lifetime tenure because I'm not supposed to try to be a politician.
Finally, you have the president tweeting over the weekend, and you've reacted to this. 2 long-running Obama-era investigations of 2 very popular Republican congressmen were brought to a well-publicized charge just ahead of the midterms by the Jeff Sessions Justice Department. 2 easy wins now in doubt because there's not enough time. Good job, Jeff. It adds to a series of tweets and statements the president's made about the Attorney General. Your thoughts on that?
These two congressmen have been indicted because of evidence against them, not because of who was president when the investigations began. And by the way, just factually, the president's wrong. One of these two investigations began last year, not 2 years ago. But the point is, if we want to drain the swamp, and I do, I'm one of 8 people out of 100 in the Senate who's never been a politician before, we should want to go after fraud. We should want to go after campaign finance violations. We should want to go after insider trading. We should want to go after stealing campaign funds. It shouldn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. Justice is blind, and the Justice Department is filled with a whole bunch of people who are trying to root out swampiness. Let's root out more of it.
Senator, thanks for coming in. We'll watch tomorrow.
Thanks for the invite.